There seem to have been a lot of Exorcist movies around in the last year or so. Pope's Exorcist, Exorcist Believer, Three Men and an Exorcist. I might have made that one up. But now we've got The Exorcism. Stars Russell Crowe. Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. Apologies for a little break in proceedings. Not many videos in the last week or so. Been a busy week with a few odds and sods to do work-wise. Magazine deadlines, and I had a day of work kept me out of the house. So I'm going to try and get some more content out in the next few days. And I have found time today to pop out and have a look at The Exorcism. Latest film with Russell Crowe as an exorcist. Second one we've had in a year or so. Last year we had the Pope's Exorcist, which was quite an amusing little film, which is going to get a sequel incidentally. This one's called The Exorcism. This film has quite an interesting production history. Went into production at the end of 2019. Then principal photography was finished. Along came something called COVID and the pandemic and various lockdowns. And the film didn't re-enter production until 2023. By which time I think Russell Crowe had actually gone on to do the Pope's Exorcist, which had come out and been a success in its own right. So it is a bit odd to see him in another film with the same sort of theme. But here he isn't a priest. Here he is an actor, a washed-out actor called Anthony Miller. He suffered a couple of years of alcohol dependency. His wife died of cancer. He's been struggling to get over that. And also in his dark past, he's got issues with sexual abuse when he was a youngster. So there's a lot going on. He's been offered a bit of a lifeline, a leading role in a film called Georgetown Project, because the previous actor playing the part dies in mysterious circumstances, as we see in the pre-credit sequence. He's struggling to come to terms with the fact he's got another chance. He's trying to learn his lines. He's got a slightly fractured relationship with his daughter Lee, played by Ryan Simpkins. She's a bit contemptuous of him. They've obviously drifted apart over the years. But she decides to help him out. She becomes his PA on the film. But things don't go well. He's struggling in many ways. And it soon becomes obvious that there's some of the force involved that's affecting his performance in the film and potentially causing all sorts of chaos. This film hasn't been particularly well received. It's been dismissed rather sniffily, and I think part of the problem is it follows this line of Exorcist films that we've had recently, none of which have been very well received either. I think particularly Exorcist Believer wasn't well received. The problem with this film, it's got called The Exorcism, and it's very much based on The Exorcist in a way. I think it's fairly transparent that the film that's being made in the film is supposed to be a remake of The Exorcist. It's even sort of hinted at in ways that somebody can't believe they're actually remaking that, because The Exorcist is a classic horror film. It's incidentally a film I only saw a couple of years ago. I've had it on physical media for a very long time. Never got around to watching it. No particular reason. I just never found the time to watch it. And I did eventually watch it, and I could see why it is a masterpiece. It is very intense. And of course, when you watch a film like that from decades ago, when you watch it now for the first time, sometimes it's difficult to put yourself in the mindset that people were in back then. People were more easily shocked back then. We hadn't seen stuff like that before. I think it seems a bit tame, perhaps, by today's standards, certainly in terms of the viscera and the gore and the horror sort of aspect of it. We've seen much more graphic and almost gratuitous sort of things since then. The Exorcist isn't like that. It's about mood and atmosphere, and I think that's held up well over the years. But I think that perhaps horror fans these days are a bit more used to those ghastly slasher films and more upfront violence and horror than The Exorcist delivered, because it wasn't about that. It was about creating this stifling, intense scenario of this young girl possessed by the demon. So I think The Exorcism suffers because it's in that wheelhouse. It's trying to recreate that story and have that same sort of atmosphere. Now, we'll say up front that it's not that bad. It's not a great film. It's not what I'm going to remember. It's not going to be in my top 10. But it's a pleasant 90-odd minutes. Well, I don't know if pleasant's the right word, but it's an interesting 90-odd minutes. I think that Russell Crowe gives a decent performance. I think as he gets more and more grizzled over the years, he becomes a bit more interesting as an actor. It's a very dark film. It's very much a film told in sort of a sepia and dark brown palette. There's not a lot of colour in it. It's pretty much all set indoors. I think there's one or two brief exterior scenes, but it's pretty much all set indoors on this set which has been built, which represents the house that the possession takes place in, and in and around the studio confines and in Tony's flat. So it's not a big spectacular film, and in fact it has sort of almost stage play elements to it. You could see it being adapted for the stage, because I don't think it doesn't deliver a lot in terms of visual effects, apart from the last reel when things kick off big style. But I thought it was reasonably entertaining. I mean, it's not a must-watch film, but it passed the time quite well. And I thought that, as I said, the performances are very good. Ryan Simpkins is very good as Lee. Nice also to see David Hyde Pierce from Frasier, the classic Frasier series, back on screen playing Father Connor. The last act of the film sort of ups things a little bit, because Tony is now in the possession of some sort of demon, and Father Connor arrives to try and conduct an exorcism to rid Tony of the spirit. There's not a great deal more to say about this film, really. It's not bad. I mean, I wouldn't say to you, rush out and see it. I wouldn't say to you, buy it on physical media or rent it if it becomes available on a streaming service free. Worth a look. But I think perhaps we are exorcisted out now. We've had a lot of this sort of stuff in the last year or so. And we've had these adjacent sort of demonic films as well, with things like Immaculate and The First Omen. I think we've had a lot of this sort of demon stuff in the last 18 months. And I think we've probably had enough of it for now. But yeah, it's all right. It's, it's decently done. I think it's well directed. It's quite atmospheric. But I say it is a very grey, overbearing, oppressive sort of film. There's very little light and shade in it. No humour, obviously. It's not that sort of film. But there's some good performances, and it's nicely put together. But it isn't a classic of its type. It's The Exorcism. Is in cinemas now if you want to catch it. It's been out for a couple of weeks. I think it still has some late night screenings if you want to catch it. But there are better films out there, so you might want to wait until streaming. That's The Exorcism. I'm going to give that... I'm going to give it 4 out of 10. 4 to 10. For The Exorcism. Right, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've stumbled across this video, you've stumbled across this channel, look back at some of the other delights that await you. Lots of Doctor Who content if you're into Doctor Who. Film reviews, out and about, all sorts of stuff. So please stick around, which will mean subscribing. Press that subscribe button, please. Like, leave a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below as well if you've seen The Exorcism. What do you think of it? Are you sick of Exorcist films? Because I think I am. And I will be back soon with some more content. I'm hoping to catch up with a few other new films soon, so stick around. Plus all sorts of other odds and sods coming your way, so don't go away. See you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.